Put myself out there on one of the most horrific things that happened to me, when I was younger, and trying to do the right thing.
Accusers of the late sex offender Jeffrey Epstein are living through new waves of online abuse and real-life harassment after speaking out.
I stayed home for majority of the time that we were all public in September and November when we went to the Capitol.
For some, intimidation began after the U.S. Justice Department exposed their identities in its release of millions of pages of Epstein files.
When the files first came out, I didn't think that I'd be able to search my name, and there were, a multitude of things that came up.
These women are among nearly 24 Epstein accusers Reuters found who've been subjected to threats, harassment, and intimidation. Based on interviews with the women and a review of police and court records and thousands of online posts, it is the most comprehensive review to date of the scope and severity of the attacks.
My name is Marina Lacerda.
For some, the harassment began after a September news conference outside the U.S. Capitol. Survivors were lobbying for the federal government to release the full investigative files tied to Epstein.
I was one of dozens of girls that I personally know who were forced into Jeffrey's mansion when we were just kids.
They hoped their remarks would lead to accountability. Instead, Marina Lacerda and Jenalisa Jones became targets of online abuse.
People were calling me a liar. People were saying that I was a prostitute. People were like, you should have known better. People were just dehumanizing the whole situation. And I was like, wow, what's wrong with people? Like, I was 14 years old.
To have people that I feel like have no time in their lives for anything else to harass me, it's just, I don't think I'll ever understand when you harass someone that's been sexually assaulted.
The attacks escalated after the DOJ exposed victims' personal information in December and January, when it posted Epstein-related files with redaction errors.
These stories are both horrific and outrageous.
Congress had passed a law in November ordering the release of the records. In thousands of instances, accusers' names, addresses, phone numbers, birth dates, photos, or other personal details were left unredacted. At times, repeatedly. Lacerda's name appeared at least 46 times. In a review of the Epstein files and emails sent to the DOJ by the women's lawyers, Reuters determined that when missed redactions were flagged to the department, personal information remained visible, sometimes for months. A Justice Department spokesperson told Reuters that no victim should face harassment threats or intimidation after coming forward. But they added that the department is, quote, not to blame for backlash directed at victims who voluntarily revealed their identities long before the files were published.
It's really sensitive information that was supposed to be between me and the FBI, and now it's just all there. There's that sinking feeling and that pit in your stomach that's like, none of this should be there.
Some of the women have endured intimidating incidents at their homes and describe living in a state of constant hypervigilance. They range from a stranger photographing women's houses to suspicious cars lingering outside and fleeing when confronted. At least 10 of the women interviewed by Reuters said they now own weapons, including guns, tasers, pepper spray, or knives, or use armed security for protection.
I typically carry a gun, depending on situations and where I'm going, but we always have them in the house.
Others recounted repeated harassing phone calls and threats of violence.
There was one in particular that really did scare me. It was this man that it was a picture of him holding a rifle, an assault rifle, and it had language in it that I won't repeat because it was brutal, but basically that I don't deserve to be alive and that I need to stand down.
After Bensky reported the threatening message to Facebook, the account was taken down for violating its policies. At least 4 women reported threats and harassment to police. But the cases didn't lead to prosecutions because authorities couldn't identify suspects or determine whether a crime had occurred, according to the women and police records reviewed by Reuters. One case remains under active investigation, police said. Other women said they chose not to contact law enforcement, citing distrust rooted in what they saw as past failures to act on abuse claims. They say the fear has triggered depression, crippling anxiety, and insomnia.
To feel unsafe in your own home is a different kind of trauma. When you don't even feel safe sleeping in your own bed, you don't even, you can't even calm your cortisol or your anxiety enough to talk yourself off the ledge.
About $425 million have been paid out to victims through a compensation fund and settlements with Epstein's estate and banks accused of facilitating his abuse. He died in a Manhattan jail cell in 2019, awaiting trial on sex trafficking charges. His death was ruled a suicide.
Of course, we don't want any victim to be further victimized.
Former Attorney General Pam Bondi acknowledged redaction errors in a May 29th testimony to Congress. She said she had delegated responsibility for releasing the documents to her then deputy, Todd Blanche.
Mr. Attorney General, I wanted to ask a few questions.
Testifying before a congressional committee earlier in May, Acting Attorney General Blanche said that any time we release a victim's name that shouldn't be released, we have failed as a Department of Justice. The DOJ spokesperson told Reuters it takes victim redaction seriously, and that when personal information is found to be unredacted, quote, our team swiftly fixes the issue and republishes the appropriately redacted pages. Meanwhile, the accusers face a fraught calculation: whether speaking out in search of justice is worth the potential exposure to further harm.